What breaks inside a human mind when the world around it still appears calm? In the quiet hum of an ordinary Walmart in Michigan, as shoppers moved through their routines under fluorescent lights, something ruptured. Without warning, without provocation, a man pulled out a knife and began attacking strangers. There were no arguments, no prior connection, no visible trigger, just sudden cold violence in the middle of everyday life. In those few minutes, the store became a stage of chaos, fear, and unanswered questions. The attacker, now in custody, left behind more than physical injuries. He left behind a psychological puzzle, a moment of human fracture that demands deeper examination. What kind of mind turns inward so violently that it explodes outward, unprovoked? What thoughts preceded the silence before the strike? Was this a calculated act masked as madness, or a spontaneous collapse of internal order? Have you ever wondered what truly drives a mind like this? Stay with me. The truths we are about to uncover go deeper than you might expect. As we begin to peel back the layers of this unprovoked stabbing, one thing becomes clear. We're not just looking at a crime, but at a mind that crossed a line most of us will never approach. Let's begin at the moment everything changed. What unfolded that day wasn't just an act of violence. It was a rupture in the invisible fabric of human behavior, the kind of moment that defies easy narratives and forces us to look deeper. We are not here to sensationalize, nor to excuse. At Criminal Psychology Unmasked, our mission is to analyze, to question, and to try, with honesty and care, to understand the human mind when it turns against itself. If you value this kind of psychological inquiry, where understanding is more important than judgment, please take a moment to verify if you're already subscribed to Criminal Psychology Unmasked. This space is made for those who seek clarity in complexity. And if this type of content speaks to you, your support through a like helps us continue exploring without turning away from uncomfortable truths. In the immediate aftermath, as authorities responded and the scene descended into controlled urgency, the timeline of events began to take shape, not just in terms of minutes and actions, but in the eerie silence that wrapped the attack. Witnesses described confusion rather than confrontation. The man didn't shout, didn't warn. There was no ideological claim, no explosive rage, only deliberate movement, sharp and detached through a place meant for ordinary life. This is where the psychological dissonance begins. How does a person walk into a public space and sever all connection with reality, with consequence, with the shared fabric of human restraint? There was no build-up, no argument, no visible escalation. Just a man moving through a Walmart aisle, and then something shifted. Surveillance footage would later show what eyewitnesses couldn't process in real time, the moment he unsheathed a knife and lunged toward his first victim. It happened in seconds, a sudden, precise movement. A stranger stabbed in the back, another one slashed moments later. Panic didn't rise gradually, it detonated. Shoppers fled, employees screamed, some froze in disbelief. What makes this attack particularly disturbing is its lack of any discernible logic. No words were exchanged, no warning was given. The attacker, according to initial reports, appeared emotionally flat, not enraged, not distressed, just methodical. Almost as if following a script that no one else could read. The victims were random, their only shared quality being proximity. That randomness is what haunts most of us, because it removes the comforting illusion that violence can be anticipated or reasoned with. As police were called and lockdown protocols began, the man didn't run. He walked, still holding the weapon, still silent. It wasn't until officers arrived that he surrendered. Calmly, without resistance. There were no final statements, no attempt to justify, only a chilling sense of completion, as if the purpose had already been fulfilled, even if no one else could understand what that purpose was. These moments, precise in their execution, yet void of any declared motive, create the most difficult kind of violence to process. Because we're not just left with questions, we're left with questions that may have never had answers at all. To understand this kind of violence, we must resist the temptation to seek immediate clarity. The absence of an obvious motive doesn't mean the act was meaningless. It means the meaning lies somewhere beneath the surface. The man behind the Michigan Walmart stabbing was not known for aggression. Neighbors described him as quiet, even passive. He had no known criminal record, no recent public outbursts, no history of threats. But silence is not peace, and invisibility is not stability. When someone carries out an attack with this level of detachment, we have to look beyond the behavior and into the mind. Was he experiencing a break from reality, a psychotic episode marked by hallucinations, delusions, or paranoia? Or was this an act of suppressed rage, years in the making, silently fermenting beneath a polite exterior? These are not excuses. They are psychological hypotheses. The goal is not to forgive, but to decode. Some mental health experts suggest this could align with what's known as a dissociative state, where the mind splits from emotional processing, allowing acts to occur without conscious empathy. Others point to schizoid or schizotypal personality traits, where isolation and distorted thinking converge. Still others wonder if this was the result of cumulative stress, neurochemical imbalance, or a long-ignored internal implosion. We often picture violence as loud, yelling, chaos, fury. But in many of these cases, it's the quiet that's most terrifying, because it suggests not passion, but vacancy, not heat, but cold intention. And that, perhaps, is what unsettles us the most. A mind that doesn't erupt, but erodes, until only action remains, stripped of emotional color, stripped of human logic. There's a boundary in the human psyche that most people, even at their lowest, never cross. Dark thoughts can flicker in the mind, anger, fantasies of escape, even destruction. But for the vast majority, they remain just that, thoughts. So when someone crosses that invisible line and turns a silent struggle into a violent act, we're left asking one of the most unsettling questions in psychology: why this person and why now? There is rarely a single answer. Often it's an accumulation, a life marked by loneliness, emotional detachment, unprocessed trauma, or cognitive distortion. What might look like calm on the surface could actually be a slow erosion of identity and connection. A person begins to see the world as threatening, meaningless, or unreal. In that mental space, the ordinary becomes intolerable, and violence becomes not just an option, but the only perceived release. Some researchers describe this as a cognitive collapse, a moment where internal frameworks disintegrate and action fills the vacuum. Others compare it to a psychological fever breaking. The pressure rises until something finally gives. Not all collapses are explosive. Some are methodical, almost serene. That's what makes these acts so chilling. They don't scream. They unfold with eerie calm. We don't know what exact thought passed through his mind before he attacked, but we do know that at some point the barrier broke. And once that crossing occurs, the individual often feels detached from the act itself, as if it's happening in a dream or underwater. These are not excuses. They are indicators of just how fragile and how hidden that final threshold can be. A mind doesn't break in isolation. It may fracture alone in silence, but the forces that shape it are rarely private. Culture, family, economic pressure, invisible expectations, all of these act as weights. And over time, for some individuals, they don't strengthen the core, they crack it. In cases like the Michigan Walmart stabbing, we must ask not only what happened inside, but what failed outside. Was he seen? Was he heard? Was there anyone who noticed the withdrawal, the odd behavior, the emotional numbness? Often in retrospect, neighbors and co-workers recall quiet signs, a change in eyes, a fading of presence, strange routines. But in the moment, our world is not trained to respond to subtlety. We wait for breakdowns that shout, not those that whisper. Society tends to pathologize what it fears and minimize what it doesn't understand. A person who isolates himself, avoids eye contact, or speaks in riddles may be dismissed as eccentric, not ill. A man who withdraws from everyone may be seen as shy, not unraveling. Without systems that connect behavior to deeper psychological risk, the cracks spread unnoticed until they reach the surface in the most violent form possible. We also live in a culture that often rewards performance over presence. As long as someone shows up, to work, to school, to the grocery store, we assume they're functioning. But functioning and coping are not the same. And in this case, the illusion of normalcy may have masked a mind already teetering on the edge. When officers arrived, the man surrendered without resistance, silent, expressionless, clutching the knife. Whatever internal storm had driven him was now hidden behind a vacant gaze. That silence became the void everyone rushed to fill. The justice system proceeded, but the families and the public were already engulfed in questions that seemed to drift without anchors. In the days that followed, the headlines were relentless. Analysts and commentators raced to frame motives: mental illness, nihilism, a calculated detachment. But no manifesto emerged, no coherent justification. Instead, a crime so abrupt and senseless that it shattered not just bodies, but a community's belief in predictability. 11 individuals were stabbed in total. 6 were initially listed in critical condition, 5 in serious condition, though none remained critical at the hospital by Sunday, and all are expected to survive. The victims ranged in age from approximately 29 to 84 years old, including a Walmart employee. At least one victim has since been released from hospital care, while others remain in varying stages of recovery. For the families, the trauma remains unbearable. 11 people attacked at random, no explanation, no warning. One moment shopping, the next enduring life-altering physical and emotional wounds. Loved ones saw survivors struggling with nerve damage, PTSD, recovery from surgery. There is grief that cannot be contained, no closure, no narrative of justice that can reverse loss. Meanwhile, the suspect, identified as 42-year-old Bradford James Gille, faces charges including terrorism and 11 counts of assault with intent to murder. He has prior records involving assault and substance violations, but has provided little communication, no motive, no remorse. Media attempts to describe him oscillate between restraint and speculation, a disturbed loner or an ideologically blank executioner. In the court of public opinion, people filled the void with fear, symbols, age, gestures, anything to make sense of the void left behind. This is the unbearable consequence of random violence. No closure, no certainty, only questions echoing in silence, through wounds that no sentence can heal. Some minds unravel loudly. Others do so in silence, slowly, invisibly, until the break is no longer theoretical, but physical. The Michigan Walmart stabbing forces us to confront not just the violence, but the terrifying subtlety that often precedes it. No manifesto, no motive, no warning, just a quiet erosion of humanity that ended in steel and blood. What do we do with that kind of fracture? The kind we can't see until it's too late. Perhaps the most painful truth is that not every darkness comes with a flashlight. Sometimes there is no pattern to follow, no trauma to unpack, no voice to interpret, just the unknowable. A person walking among us, detached, dissolving, waiting. It is this uncertainty that challenges the foundation of both law and empathy. Because while justice may sentence the body, the mind that snapped remains a mystery we may never fully solve. If this kind of deep psychological exploration speaks to you, and you believe that understanding, not judging, is the path to prevention, take a moment to verify if you're already subscribed to Criminal Psychology Unmasked. Your support helps us continue creating thoughtful, respectful content that doesn't glorify violence, but dares to question the shadows behind it. A like, a comment, or even sharing this video with someone who reflects like you do means more than you know. And if this case moved you, disturbed you, or left you searching for meaning, let us know. What struck you the most about the mind behind this act? Your insight keeps this exploration alive. Keep following Criminal Psychology Unmasked. Very soon, we'll return with another case that shocked the public, one that left a deep imprint not just on the victims, but on society as a whole. See you in the next video.